Welcome to God with George Ortega. This is episode number 69. I'm recording it on Wednesday, January 27th at 6:11 p.m. Eastern Time. And I hope you enjoyed yesterday's episode. That was my very good friend Andy. And we were pleased with it. So, he'll join me maybe once or twice a week. We'll just do converse about whatever. And I was just talking to a mutual friend of ours who kind of suggested that maybe, we could perhaps, that it was like, it was very easygoing, but then what I thought was that maybe a bit of disagreement might help the make the show more interesting. And so Andy and I have different, views that we don't, share. There are, opposing views. So that might be a good thing to do. So anyway, so what I was doing today, I just got back from a walk. Um, I was working on that list of topics, what to talk about God, because there is, there's a lot, I don't think I could run out of material, and if I repeat different themes over and over, that's actually what Judaism to a great extent is about. It's we read the first five books of the Bible every year, and each time you read it, it's like you see different things in it that you didn't see before, and you learn more and all. So, and so for these shows, you know, I don't really like the feeling of, for example, I was trying to not, I gotta get better. And I thought that, it would be a good thing to say this. I need to get better at not only not saying a lot, but not saying a lot. And I think I know the reason I say it, because no, actually, no. I was just going to defend it, but no, it's just so, so, all right, if you're listening to this and you talk to God, you pray to God on my behalf. Because maybe I'm not to be honest, yes, over the last, I've done television for 20 years, local TV, whatever, but I haven't figured it out. Sometimes I'm really good. Sometimes I'll just say what I want to say, without these extraneous things. But anyway, I was taking a walk and trying to think of topics, and it was difficult, you know. And I persevered though, and I was pleased. I'm up to maybe 30 to 40 topics I have, I guess, so far, but I want to get to 100 to 200, and some of them will be, very similar to others of them. But I wanted to I should have left this message. I'm attending a tour class tonight, from 8 to 9:30, and I kind of look, I learned from having done an episode, and I used to do this before. I hadn't done it that much recently, but when I attend a Torah class, that's given by a rabbi, then I do an episode of this immediately afterwards. It invariably becomes a better episode, I think, because it sharpens my mind. And with this rabbi that I listened to a couple of days ago, I attended his class. He's really funny and he's really energetic, and that kind of, emotions can be communicated, can be, they're contagious. They really are. So anyway, I kind of wished I'd wait to do this, but I want to get it done because I'm a little tired, and I'm thinking that after an hour and a half of the class tonight, I may not want to, feel just going right into doing an episode, and I want to try to get to sleep early. So anyway, um, but I did, come up with some. All right, might as well, yeah. I don't, it's probably sinful to make things more difficult on oneself that is as necessary. I'm just going to read some of what I came up with. All right, this is pretty cool. Um, this one is the internet as God's mind. I mean, this is pretty powerful. It's like God manifests God's being, God's will through human beings. In other words, you talk to a person, then God is talking through that person, and you're learning, you're listening to God indirectly through that person. And and then you ask God things, God, why are you doing this? What's the meaning of this? What should I do? How should I do this better? Whatever. And you get answers and stuff, but that doesn't really apply to like, well, what's the capital of Kansas or something? I don't know. And and this is amazing because you know, God manifests God's being, again, through people. We can ask a lot of experts, people, things, and we'll learn them. And but the internet is like that. The internet is God in a way. It's like you can ask the internet pretty much anything, and if you ask it in the right way and go to the right page, you'll get a relatively decent answer. And that kind of actually relates to a book that I've read, and I want to reread it sometime soon, hopefully. It's called The Singularity is Near. It's not about religion, but it is about a Jewish guy. I mean, it's written by a Jewish guy. His name is Ray Kurzweil, and he happens to be the top engineer at Google. And the man is brilliant because he has made it a point to understand technology so well that he predicts happenings in computers and technology. And he's got an accuracy rate of over 80, perhaps over 90% over the last several decades. What he says not only happens, but happens within the time frame that he says. And and uh, and I mean, he really goes out there too. This guy is like, in other words, like, all right, other people basically, and I'm trying to pull this to God. So like, we want to maintain as strong a connection with God, I believe, as possible, because that's my belief. That's my belief. Because, well, I was reading a book earlier that just reminded me that, like, God is the greatest being, the supreme being. So it's got to be very beneficial, advantageous to have this connection with the supreme being. But anyway, Kurzweil, um, he posits that I'm not sure what his religious views are, theological views, but he sees, and this I really don't follow the logic on this all that well, but he sees, like, for example, we are with the internet, what we're doing is we're infusing this world with intelligence, with information, data. And like, he I think I say like when sometimes I just don't really know what I'm going to say. I don't, but he posits that eventually, through some technological kind of means, and I have to be somewhat skeptical about this approach, but then again, he may be right, that through some technological means, through various technological means, consciousness, what he refers to as consciousness, is going to pervade the entire universe, which is interesting because, like, my perspective is that consciousness already pervades the entire universe. I was talking with someone recently about this idea, with Andy, I think, that God is uh, everything, and it's so like, and it's interesting because, like, one of the things that Andy and I disagree with it on, and we hopefully we'll flesh it out, because I think sometimes our disagreements are not really disagreements in kind, but actually we're just like using different ideas or words to say uh, things that are similar or the same even. For example, Andy will quote scripture that says, well, like, and the mountains will clap, and that basically Andy understands, and a lot of conventional Jewish people, Christians, have the understanding that God is everywhere. that God is everywhere, right? But what many people don't understand, perhaps sufficiently, is that to be everywhere necessarily means that relative to God, and we're talking about God, if God is everywhere, God is everything. So God is in every rock, and God is in every molecule, every atom, every quark, every every you know every micromillimeter of space, this space, with atoms, like they're almost all space, just a proton, um, nucleus and protons and electrons, whatever, but it's almost all space. So like, yes, so the idea is that like, and my understanding, like, if God is everything, well, guess what, fellas? The universe is everything. That's what it means. The universe is everything. So God is everything. So like, so yes, my view is what's been come to be known as pantheism, that God and the universe are synonymous. And so Andy doesn't go that far, but really, if you believe, because I think he's afraid, and this is how some, like, the more we discuss this, I think he fears people idolizing things if we equate God with material things. But no, like, for example, like, I know that God is in this table. God is this table. God is everything. But I don't pray to the table. I mean, like, So yeah, this idea that God is everything, and I want to get back to actually this list that I was making, because I don't know, God had me go someplace with that, and then I said, all right, you're done with that topic, now on to something else. And he just, like, I mean, like, he doesn't give me warning. He's like, I'm in the middle of something. Now you're gonna know something else. All right, whatever. So but what I found back to the Kurzweil thing. So yes, so like, God, there is consciousness already pervading the entire universe. But so Kurzweil is positing a technological kind of consciousness, which would be God also. I mean, it's like another different manifestation of God. But that would be, again, like, he posits this technology will just spread into the entire universe, 2 to 3 trillion galaxies. I don't get. I want to read this book again sometime soon, hopefully. But so, like, I'm coming, I'm struggling to come up with topics, and then I noticed I was a bit upset earlier today because, like, the Democrats, they talk a good game, but they're not, they should be, you know taking the filibuster and say, well, you only need, instead of 60 votes to end a filibuster, they should say, well, you only need 52 to 54 or 54. They can do that. Schumer can do that. Biden can, suggest very strongly that he do that. But our problem is, like, the Republicans, like, they just, you know, I mean, like, they've proven themselves to be so dangerously irresponsible. And so now we're stuck with the Democrats. And I've been a Democrat my entire life. And now I've been in denial, through the Clinton era. I campaigned for both Clinton and Obama. And it's only now that I'm coming to these guys are not all that great people. I mean, like, just look at the inactivity in climate change. Look at, like, how they allowed the Republicans. I mean, the one thing you can say about Republicans that you got to admire is, like, when they believe in something, they just go for it. Whereas, like, the Democrats are too, spineless a lot. They just, you know, and you would think that this insurrection, just killing people in the Capitol, would be enough to get them to understand, the seriousness. Anyway, and actually tying this in with God, one of the reasons it's important for me, that I find beneficial, basically cultivating this stronger connection to God, staying in this God consciousness more of the time, is that, like, like everyone, we there's problems in the world, and there are people who are responsible for the problems, either individuals or groups of individuals. And we have the tendency to blame them. I do, that's, I mean, I know logically that that's illogical, because I know that nobody has the free will, that's my understanding. So you can't blame, for example, a robot or a puppet for what a robot or a puppet does. But in this world where everybody's like profoundly insane on this, I mean, everybody believes in free will, and like, and actually, we should talk about this sometime. I made a point in a class um, recently that I was asking, if God created the world, why did God create suffering? God could have easily created a world without suffering. And then, like, unfortunately, I was understood to be suggesting that I was like, challenging the notion of free will, but I wasn't. I mean, basically, the idea is, like, for example, before the decapods, 300 million years ago, there was no suffering, because God had created organisms, life before that, to not have the mechanisms, the neural mechanisms to be able to suffer. So it's not a free will question. God could have theoretically, made us to, yeah, I'm going to go with this, God made us to be able to, God could have made us completely blissful and completely virtuous, and virtue and bliss um, and happiness are very connected, actually. Basically, goodness is what creates happiness. So what's interesting, most people will say, well, no, if God would have created, and I mentioned this before, but I want to mention this again relative to our beliefs about the afterlife. Uh, if 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 our world, if we were completely blissful all the time, no struggles, no challenges, wouldn't that be boring? No, I don't think it'd be boring at all. I don't think I can imagine myself having a great day, and I don't know if it's ever happened, but I could imagine having such a great day that everything goes great throughout the entire day. Nothing goes wrong. Feeling, you know, and just multiply that, by every day of your life, and so like, and so like, but then the argument is, well, we might be happy, but we might not have much character. All right, here's the answer to that, really. And within Judaism, I did a little reading last night about the thoughts about the afterlife, in Judaism, and they're all over the place. Some people believe in reincarnation. Some people believe that some souls, our essences, are going to be destroyed. There's no consensus on this. And I've talked about how my personal understanding is that this world is really God's imagination. I think is a great, metaphor. That we exist in God's mind, that this reality is God's mind, just like our dreams are our mind, just creating this reality. This is God's dream in a way. And so, all right, what I'm tired. All right, this everything. So this is God's. Oh yeah. So basically, um, because we are in God's mind, we're in God's memory, and because God is omniscient, we were in God's mind before God created this 14 almost billion-year old universe. So by my understanding, we That's the afterlife. We continue to exist in God's mind. We've always existed in God's mind. We always will. So we're, in a certain sense, we're as eternal as God. Because again, and I'm glad I'm getting to this, because it's like, some of these other topics are interesting, but this is getting into like what this show is most about, the essential nature, the fundamental nature of God. So like God is eternal. And so that means that God, and God is omniscient, all right? God is eternal and all knowing. That means that throughout every moment of that eternal past and throughout every moment of the eternal future, well, with the past, God would have foreseen everything about us, every single detail. God is also infinite, so like God can do that. God's mind can parallel process, something the computers can do, but our unconscious can do that also. But so anyway, to tie this back together with this idea of suffering, and like, wouldn't it be great for everything to be blissed out and everybody virtuous? Within Judaism, there's a belief, and especially within Christianity, that we die, and and we go to heaven. We're back with God in this bliss. We're basking in God's glory and in God's mercy and God's goodness and God's joy, and we're also perfect angels. So in other words, like, and this is like, this is our eternal state. And I believe that. I choose to believe. I can't prove that. I can't really provide you know well, the evidence. No, I can't provide perfect evidence, because, like, in my mind, if God has us suffer, in this incarnation, God could theoretically have us suffer, when we're on the other side. But I prefer to believe God doesn't do that. I prefer to believe that no matter how evil a person is, even Donald J. Trump is going to go to heaven and be there in heaven. Eternally, and not being able to be evil anymore. That's the thing. It's like, and that's my belief. And again, I believe that because just as I believe that the belief in hell is the most hateful, horrible belief, it's really not a good reflection on God. That God would condemn. We're here 80 years, 100 years, whatever, and the stuff we do in here indicts us so completely that some of us are destined to suffer eternally, and this hellfire and stuff. That's the most evil belief I can think of. So yeah, so like, and the best belief that I can think of, really, very literally, we all go to this bliss, and I don't try to figure out what it's going to be like, angels with harps on clouds and stuff. I don't know, but just generally, that we will be blissed out, that we'll be like in perfect bliss. We won't be wanting anything, and we'll know that. I mean, we're not really wanting anything in this life. It's good understanding, but we believe we are, a lot of times. Um, so yeah, so and so we'll be completely blissful and completely good. But here's the thing, um, relative to the bliss aspect. If we're existing in a state that's completely blissful, moment after moment, day after day, eon after eon, throughout eternity, by definition, if we're in a completely blissful state, it can't be boring. It cannot. Boring is unpleasant. Okay, boring is a manifestation of displeasure. And so, like, yes, so it's like, if we're in a completely blissful state, it can't possibly be boring. So anyway, um, so so back to this walk. So what I discovered, to my surprise and pleasure, is that as I was like coming up with these topics, I was thinking to myself, what else about God? What else about God? What else about God? And not only was I coming up with things, not as much as, as I would like, I guess. Sometimes I think I asked too much. But what I also noticed was happening was that I was feeling closer to God. Yeah, and and then I talk to God a lot, throughout the day and all. But when I'm not, for example, doing what I was doing, just trying to come up with a list of topics for these shows, I generally don't, go from, all right, what should I think about God now? What should I think about God now? That's not the way I'm generally thinking, oh, like, how do we repair this world? How do we fix this? How do we fix this? But my experience after this walk tonight informs me that it might be a really good thing that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to eventually type these out when God says I will, because like, can't do it until God says so. And and then I'll read through them because I don't like to repeat the themes or whatever, and do this again maybe tomorrow. Take another walk and see what other ideas, and again see if that happens again. See if by straining myself to come up with topics to talk about for this series, I will be I will be engaged in the mindset, the frame of mind, the mental activity that brings me closer to God, because that's what I felt. All right, well, I've got about a minute and 20 seconds. So, I just noticed that when I end the show, I don't say what time this series is on every Monday through Friday. So it's on at 5 p.m. Every Monday through Friday on White Plains Community Media. And if you get Verizon, Channel 45, Verizon, and you live in Ardsley or Scarsdale or Hartsdale or Tarrytown or some of the other neighboring towns and villages, you also get the show there, through Verizon. At Optimum, it's just, channel 76 here in White Plains. And again, it's White Plains Community Media, and you can catch the episodes on YouTube. And God has me, I think I mentioned this before. God will probably have me listen to this episode later today because I'm really, before I've done like over 600 half-hour episodes of about 7 or 8 shows in the last 20 years. And I almost never listen to them because I say, yeah, I know this stuff. But no, I'm beginning to understand that it's good to go over this, just like it's good for us to go over this over and over. Thanks for watching, and God willing, I'll see you tomorrow.